In this episode, I interviewed Mike Mutzel of High Intensity Health. His channel on YouTube has grown to over 750,000 subscribers. He's created a business out of content, out of books, and he also has a nutritional supplement business as well. In this episode, we deep dive into his journey. He shares some tips and tricks that all you should listen to in terms of just health wellness, financial wellness, building a business, so on and so forth. With that being said, let's jump into it. All right, welcome to another episode of the FitBUX podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome there as well. We got an exciting one today. Mike is joining us from High Intensity Health. Before I jump into any questions, I'll let you introduce yourself because words that I can't, can say are not going to do any justification for, everything that you've done in the industry and everything. So, please introduce yourself.
Sure. Sounds good. Thanks, Joe, for having me on. So Mike Mutzel is my name, as you mentioned, Joe. I started out as a consultant back in 2006. After graduating from college, I got a degree in biology. Wasn't sure what I really wanted to do. I went the pre-med route, but I had a serendipitous interaction with a medical doctor who was then the chief medical officer of Merck. Back in Boston, I was out there visiting my brother, and he was like, I was studying for the MCAT, which is the medical college aptitude test, sort of like the GRE, for folks that want to go into grad school and so forth. And he was like, healthcare is changing with Medicare, Medicaid insurance. You could do so many health related things without having to go into debt to go into med school. Why don't you do something like that? And I was like, I took the MCAT anyway. Then I ended up pursuing a master's degree in nutrition and started working with doctors in a sales capacity. So a lot of people don't know, there's supplements when you go to Whole Foods or health food stores. And that's sort of classic retail, but there's a lot of cash only medical doctors now and healthcare professionals who have a kind of higher quality grade of supplements called the professional channel. So I was a sales rep in that supplement category space for a number of years, helped a lot of other businesses in that time get off the ground and like doctors create their own private label formulas and create their own custom products representing manufacturers, and that was successful. And then in 2019, I started my own company called Myoxcience. But how I got to become on YouTube is when I was a sales rep for these doctors, I realized they were excellent clinicians, just not really good marketers. And so I was like, well, how about you and I sit down and have a video like this, Dr. Smith, whoever I was working with. One of the first videos that I did, one of the early videos was with Dr. David Perlmutter, Jason Fung, many other great clinicians, and I just helped them capture their message that they were trying to convey to patients on a wider scale. And so this was in 2014 when I started the videos. And then I just got more and more comfortable on camera. I was a little bit nervous and uncomfortable, as we all are when we start recording and things like that, and just started doing my own one-off videos. So now it's kind of a combination between, sit down, two-person interview style. And back then, the Skype interviews and the Skype podcast were really taking off. This was prior to Zoom, sort of that technology. So I wanted to be different. And I was like, look, instead of doing the Skype interviews, I'm going to travel to these people. And so I'd figure out a way on a shoestring budget, Southwest Airlines, to go up to Canada and meet with Jason Fung or meet with David Perlmutter or Ken Berry in Nashville, and do these, to bootstrap these interviews. Oftentimes it was myself setting up behind the scenes where I would go on Craigslist and hire a wedding photographer, pay him $200 to hit record and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. And now we're at 700,000 subscribers on YouTube. We get 200,000 downloads a month in iTunes in the audio platform, and it keeps growing from there. So that's a long introduction, but that's how I got to where I am today.
I mean, I listened to some of your videos and podcasts, and it's inspirational. I mean, I was a former athlete. And so in college and stuff, I was really into the health scene, everything from trying to figure out, should I be taking desiccated beef liver to eating non-processed foods? I was in the best shape of my life. And then probably about 6-7 years ago, I don't know why I kind of started sliding. And as I was watching some of your videos, I was like, I'm getting amped up again. So
there you go.
I'm going back to the way it's what I used to be, and that I need to get there again. And it's definitely inspirational. And on that front, I could tell that when you're doing the videos, the passion's there, right?
Yeah.
The love for what you're doing is there. And I tell people all the time, if you do what you love to do, the money side of things will take care of itself. I have an uncle who cuts hair. I mean, he loves cutting hair, and he's, worth $2-3 million now.
and it's
Wow.
just he just did what he did. Where did that passion for just healthcare in general, nutrition, where did that start at for you? Was it one of those things where it's like, hey, I've always been like this ever since I was younger, or is it something like that triggered you to say, oh man, like I really want to get into this and help people?
Yeah, Joe, this is a great question. I think it's a little bit of both. It was intrinsically there since I was a young kid. I remember just honestly that when I was like 5 or 6 years old, my mom is really into movies and things like that. And back then, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger was on with the earlier movies, Terminator and things. And she was a big fan of Jean-Claude Van Damme, who was in all these karate type, movies and things. And I just remember the aesthetic was cool. Like, wow, these guys are ripped. Like, how do I get to that level? And I remember being young. Maybe I was 7. I don't know. I was really young. And then so I just was interested in just doing push-ups and things like that. My dad had a home gym. And then my stepdad had a little boxing set up. He was a fireman, so he had a weight bench and some dumbbells. So I would just go in there and screw around. Didn't know anything about nutrition. And then it was my uncle actually who got me into. I started getting more and more into lifting weights, and then trying out for football and stuff like that. And my uncle was like, "You have to get into whey protein. This is like the thing that will help you build muscle, right?" So he started telling me about his protein shakes, and I must have been 14 at that time. So I started getting into it when I was younger, but it wasn't honestly until, and I thought I might make a career out of this, and that's why I pursued biology. As an undergrad and things like that. I wanted to really just get into physical therapy. That's kind of what I thought I would go to college for. But it wasn't until I had the passion to share this message with other people really happened when I had my own set of health issues. I in college had a low back injury, deadlifting, got really into lifting weights, got pretty big, wanted to be a bodybuilder and all that. Had a back injury, which was serendipitous. It was a blessing in disguise. I couldn't lift weights like I'd like to, but I liked the intense exercise. And this was when Lance Armstrong was winning multiple Tour de France's. My dad was really into cycling. So got into cycling and I got on the bike team at Western Washington University and collegiately and thought about being a pro cyclist. But anyway, the long story short is I started to overtrain. And in overtraining for my aspirations to be a pro cyclist, I lost a lot of weight, became anemic, and my testosterone just tanked. I literally like no more morning erections, no more sex drive. Like, I'm like, what is going on? I was young then, like 21, 22. So I got some hormones tested. I knew my hormones were off. I was always cold all the time, shivering. I knew something was off, but I'm like, what could this possibly be? So I knew enough about labs and things like that. Went in to the doctor, said, I want to run my hormones, and came back. Testosterone was super low, thyroid hormone low, anemia, all that. And they said, you know what? We can just put you on an SSRI, an antidepressant, basically. I'm like, well, that's really weird. Like, what? My hormones are low, but is the antidepressant going to fix my? No. Well, your hormones just could be low. That's just how it. I'm like, no, something has changed, and that something that changed was both my diet and my exercise. I was over exercising and eating crappy foods compared to my historical norm. Trying to save money. This is my last year of college when this all happened. And I was just disappointed. But thankfully, doing the biology undergrad, I knew how to go into PubMed and do research and look into the peer-reviewed academic literature. So I started to type in search terms like overtraining syndrome and hormone fluctuations and testosterone. And lo and behold, I found all this literature about how overexercise can cause hormone issues, particularly in men, and drive low testosterone, and as well as cause anemia. And I'm like, well, why didn't the doctor who spent 8 years studying how like the human body, why didn't they know this stuff that I found in like no less than 10 minutes at the library, the school library. And so that was kind of like I got red pilled, if you will. I realized that doctors, they go to medical school with the best of intentions to help people. That's why they're in medicine, but they're very constrained by insurance reimbursement, Medicare, Medicaid. And it's really hard for them to spend the time with the patients to really figure out the root cause. So they're quick to dispense medicines that put band-aids on symptoms and don't really address the real reason why people are suffering. Going on down the list, whether it's high blood pressure, diabetes, depression, dementia, you name it, there's oftentimes a root cause, a precipitating event that happened, whether it's a divorce, a death in the family, a breakup, a diet change, food allergy, antibiotic use that just trash the microbiome. There's often some event that happens and people's window of susceptibility is more vulnerable and they start to manifest symptoms. And so that was like the aha moment because I started to pay attention to family members and, my aunt would talk about, oh, my blood sugar is normal, but she would just eat clean the 3 days prior to getting her annual physical, and she was pre-diabetic. Right. So anyway, I started to realize like people need this education. So that's kind of where the passion came from, is being a little bit red pilled or disgruntled. And you realize that, wow, many more people don't know this. And we often put our CPA, our lawyer, our doctor, these so-called authoritative figures on a pedestal. And they say, well, my CPA said this, so I'm going to do this, or my doctor said this. And your doctor is just one person. When your contractor says, well, you should put the window here, but your spouse is like, well, I really want it there, you might get a second opinion from a different contractor. And I think most people should do that when it comes to their health as well. Just because one person says one thing doesn't mean that's the de facto definitive answer, right? We all have different opinions and perspectives, and sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And oftentimes I've found, and having worked with a medical doctor directly as a nutritionist in their office, very smart guy, great mentor, he had blind spots as well. And he was constrained. His name is Gerard Guillory. He has worked with tens of thousands of patients, an excellent mentor. I learned a ton from working with him and his patients. But, he, like all of us, had a few blind spots. So I think it was a combination, of just a natural interest blended with, like I mentioned, having to figure out my own health issues for myself and discover this whole field of so-called alternative medicine, which really should be primary medicine, is addressing the exercise, the nutrition, the lifestyle. So that's how it started.
They don't want to get me down the pharmaceutical industry history over the last 100 years in this country and how
it's wild.
That's a whole nother podcast. But yeah, I was, similar with injuries and stuff. Like in high school, I blew up my shoulder, and they had me on anti-inflammatories and painkillers and all this stuff. Never did any MRIs. By the time I got out of college playing hockey, they opened me up for surgery. Actually, when I was 19, they're like, this is worse than we thought. And it was just prescription after prescription. And it's like, and eventually I was just like, I'm never going to take prescription painkillers again, because I was taking so much of it. It's just masking the problem.
Yeah.
And then around 34, 35 is when I really stopped working out like a lot. And, diet kind of went down a little bit, and I kept getting like swelling and dizziness and all this type of stuff. And come to find out from an injury when I was 20 years old, I'd fractured a vertebrae in my back playing hockey. Oof. And when they found out, it was the same thing, muscle relaxers, painkillers. I'm like, so I built a cold plunge in my backyard, and that's
sweet.
I go sit in that at least once a day, sometimes 2 or 3 times, to get the swelling down. And
wow.
So yeah, that's why it's like I started doing that. And then, like I said earlier, listening to this, like some of your videos and stuff, it's like I gotta start doing this other stuff again.
Heck yeah. You got it, Joe. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. I try to tell people, like, I read a ton of stuff from psychology to marketing, and you have your passion that you've done on the health side. Are there any other skills that you've developed along the way that you went out and learned? Like you said, at first you were uncomfortable on camera, right? Did you do anything to help build that skill? Because that is a skill now. Like, what other skills did you tie in besides like professional education into being, the success that you are today?
Yeah, great question. I would always put myself in situations that made me uncomfortable. So the way that I got comfortable being on camera was actually by just hosting live in-person events, which used to scare the crap out of me. I mean, I remember one time I almost fainted in speech class in college, speaking in front of like 40 people. So what I did, and this was in my sales business, and that was a really good training. If people want to get out there, doing any kind of sales, because you have to cold call people, and you have office managers and personnel, and you have to, introduce yourself and be a little bit charismatic and outgoing. And so that was like the excellent. I mean, I got paid to learn how to communicate with people and improve my ability to just communicate effectively. So that was amazing. If someone's young in their 20s, cold calling and sales is just a phenomenal training. And then also just doing public speaking. And so there's Toastmasters and there's all these things. I went to one Toastmasters. I didn't get a lot out of it. But what I wanted to do, I knew I had the ability to and improve my delivery in speaking from a stage. And I knew that had to be part of what I needed to tackle or master, if you will, or get better at least, in order to make it to the next level and what I want to do. with my career in life. And so I would just host these events. And the first one had 6 people. I'd say free, free dinner, come here. We're going to sample some products and stuff, and then go over new research. And then the next thing you know, it was 8 people, 12. And then, I started, when I ended that segment of my career, I could fill up 50, 60 people in a room. And I would get super nervous. I would get uncomfortable. I'd have to then I had to learn all these other things like breath work and meditation, and learn like, okay, well, I can't have caffeine the day of because I'm already amped up. And one time I had too much coffee and I almost, had like a nervous breakdown kind of thing. So I think that was really important. Here's the thing, a lot of people follow Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, and there's a lot of great people in the internet marketing space, or so-called influencer space, and they make it sound like so easy. Just turn on the camera and go, and you can make your first million in the first 6 months or something like that. There's a lot of skills that you need to learn, and I think because the perception is that it's so easy to build an internet business, is people expect this to happen very quickly. And I tell people, definitely don't quit your day job. You want to straddle as long as you can. So you're going to have to be working your day job to be paying the bills, to be paying your recurring expenses and so forth. And you're going to have to hustle and grind nights, weekends, stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning, work on Sundays, whatever it may be, to get the income or the revenues from your new passion business to the same level as your day-to-day job. So I think that's the thing that is hard for people to understand. They just want like, boom, well, this influencer was an overnight success. Oftentimes when we see an overnight success outside of like the Haktua girl, right? That was a true overnight success. Most people that are an overnight success, they've been doing things for years, and then Joe Rogan hears about them, or Tom Bilyeu or Lewis Howes. They're on a big podcast, and then they suddenly appear to be an overnight success, but they have actually been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to, really sort of make their craft marketable, or to enhance our skill set in some unique way. So I think the realistic expectations are really important for people to understand and straddle as long as you can. And you have to sort of learn everything. So I had to learn how to do video editing, audio editing, WordPress, coding, because if you just delegate, and I'm a huge fan of delegation, once you've mastered the actual task, because it's really easy to get ripped off. If you want to look for a videographer, you just go out. I mean, tomorrow, if I were to hire a new videographer, I would probably just get completely smoked in terms of price, because if I didn't know anything about video, the day rate for filming is like $1,500. And it's like, wow, if this is a passion project that you don't know when you're going to get your first dollar in terms of sales or advertising or whatever, that's a huge investment for just one day of filming. That doesn't even include editing or anything like that. And if you suck on camera, that's going to, the content's not going to be great. So you have to learn how to do and be humble about this, and realize like, look, I know one day I'm not going to be editing my own videos, or I know one day I'm not going to be doing the code on my WordPress website, but it's helpful to at least learn some of these skills so that you can get off the ground to actually start to make the money. And what I found is there's really smart, talented people. They would delegate everything, and they didn't know how to do anything themselves, and they never actually could get off the ground. And their Instagram account still has 300 followers, from whatever. And so I think that is the skill set. And so, taking the time, and of course, or hire people that can do this really cheaply. One thing that I found, just a tip if people want to get started, is wedding photographers often don't have any income during the week because they're filming weddings on the weekends. Most people are not getting married on a Tuesday night. So during the week, they're just trying to gets a little bit of revenue, or, so you can pay them a couple $100 to come and film for you and do some, whether it's product shots or headshots or whatever, and you don't have to pay an arm and a leg for that. So I think that's one thing that a little tip that I've always been, if I travel for whatever and go to a conference and there's some really sought after doctor speaking there, or someone in the area that would be great to collab with, I've never had an issue finding a videographer in less than 4 hours time using Craigslist, and not paying, what do they say? You lose your shorts, doing that. So that's one thing. And yeah, just be humble, straddle, and you have to get a little bit gritty with this, and it's going to take time. But if you want to be successful, that's what you're going to have to do.
Yeah. And that behind the scenes thing is something that people, a lot of times, they don't see. And you're right on that. There's a lot that goes into it. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because like you said, a lot of people just see an influencer and it's like, oh, overnight. Like, they have 500 subscribers, 1,000 subscribers, or 1 million subscribers. Like, I could do that. And it's like, no, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard.
Now, if you're still watching at this point in the video, clearly you're getting value out of it, and that's what we try to do on our channel. So please subscribe so we can keep putting out videos like this, tips and tricks, all to get you as a young professional to hit that financial freedom goal. Let's get back to the episode.
Totally.
On the health side, one of the big questions I want to ask you, because this is like, we talk about financial wellness, right?
Yeah.
A lot of burnout, a lot of stress. And when I talk finances, I tell people one of the biggest mistakes is that we look at things in isolated pockets. So like when I need student loan help, I get that from a student loan person. And when I need investment help, I go to that person. When I get the mortgages, I go to that person. And it actually hurts you more than anything. You should be looking at everything as a whole.
Mm.
But that goes into everything we do in life. Health is one of them. To me, like if my financial wellness is horrible, it doesn't matter what I'm eating because the stress I'm under is going to be destroying me. And the same thing is like if I eat right, that also correlates to financial wellness as well, because I'm more apt to feel better, work better, be more energetic. You know, in your work, have you seen any correlation? I use finance and health, but just anything else, relationship wise, for example, like being healthier as a person correlating to finances or correlating to relationships and so on and so forth.
It's huge, Joe. Absolutely. I mean, you look at there's multiple ways to go about this, but and I don't necessarily want to offend anyone, but the healthier you are, the more of an inspiration you're going to be to other people, the more even your mood is going to be. So whether you're dealing with clients that are abrasive, you know, if you're a customer service representative or you're a physical therapist or an occupational therapist or a nurse, right? You're dealing with people that are already super stressed out and stressful work conditions. So the more even your mood can be, because you're healthy, you have good metabolic health. You're not having the peaks and troughs in your blood sugar levels, in the associated hormones that increase as a result of having these ebbs and flows in blood sugar, for example. I'll never forget this story. This was a doctor friend of mine. His name is Norm Schwartz. He's a family medicine doctor, treated a lot of autism and ADHD and things like that. And in a podcast that he and I filmed, he talked about during his residency program, there was a woman that came into the hospital who was just violent, shaking everywhere, basically uncontrollable. And they had to have police and the security help strap this woman into the bed because she had some major issues going on, foaming at the mouth, all this stuff. They didn't know if she had rabies or what is like, she's just like on PCP. What is going on? So he finally like got her stable in terms of a bed, and then he tested her glucose. He was the resident there who was the attending physician, and her glucose was like 395 milligrams per deciliter. So for reference, you and I, Joe, right now, you know, based upon when you had lunch or not, our blood glucose is probably 110, 130. You know, for most people who are metabolically healthy in the post-meal window this time in the afternoon, you know, their glucose is maybe around 100 milligrams per deciliter. So her glucose was not even in the diabetic range. We're like super physiologic, way off the charts. And that caused her to just be violently, you know, not listening to anyone, just really out of control. And if you look at a lot of people in our society, you know, you see these videos of Karen. You know, there was one video the other day of this woman with an axe, you know, getting out of her car and smashing some windows. I mean, we've seen these viral videos all the time. And these people are just sort of unhinged because the foods that they're eating are causing their mood and their neurochemicals and their behavior to be really out of control. So, yeah, the metabolic health and blood sugar, the foods that we eat are going to affect how we show up as a partner, how we show up as parents, how we show up to our patients if we're in the healthcare space, what have you. So it's really, really important. And then along those lines, like you said, Joe, I mean, eating healthy food now because it's not being subsidized by the government. It's sad, but the most unhealthy foods out there are really affordable because the government is subsidizing the commodity crops and artificially making those unhealthy foods much more affordable. So if you have financial issues or are overspending in different, you know, areas, you know, if you have a Lexus or a BMW, but you live in an apartment, you should probably reprioritize the type of car you're driving, for example, so that you can afford healthier food, so you can sleep better, have better mental acuity, so you can make more money, and then buy a house and then upgrade your car, right? So I think there's a lot of things that people should prioritize. And to your point, health is one of them, because if you haven't prioritized your health, we know that the biggest cause of bankruptcy in this country, and correct me if I'm wrong, is from healthcare related expenses, an unexpected illness, a cancer, a heart disease, time in the hospital, time out of the workplace, all that can really can just erode your bank account and your savings. So health is really important, and they're correlated. If you look at Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, I mean, these people are fit. Tom Cruise, jacked, fit in his, late 60s, early 70s. So, we want to aspire to, and it's not just about the aesthetic, it's about your brain, your cognition, and less reliance on pharmaceuticals or surgeries or things like that. So, yeah, I think it's important that people focus on their nutrition. Doesn't have to be crazy expensive. Takes a little bit more time, but you're going to get that time back in productivity, in more income, because you're just going to have more bandwidth to take on more tasks. And, really, you're going to be able to have a strong, irrespective of whatever you're trying to sell, whether it's healthcare services, financial services, construction, real estate, you're going to have a more memorable impact on people if you're, as optimally healthy as you can be, because you're going to be vibrant, your skin's going to look good, all that, energy, eyes. People pick up on these nonverbal aspects of health. And so, yeah, I'm biased, of course, in that realm. And we all have genetic issues and other things that are going against us and all that. But doing the best we can from a health standpoint translates into, in my opinion, greater financial success.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the nails on the head that you hit, is like people trading off eating right for a car,
Yeah.
right? Like, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. It's like, yeah, you can, like, trim down other areas of your life that are not important, which is like the whole materialization thing. And that goes back to what I was saying in the very beginning. What I found is, like, if you're working on something that you really love to do, all these other things that are noise, like cars and everything else, you don't even care about anymore. It's easy not to spend money on them anymore. And you do start focusing on the health. Like, I will ask one health topic, because my wife just asked me this the other day, because she loves fish, we eat fish. And she's like, where am I supposed to buy fish? Because we've been reading all the things about fish being contaminated with pharmaceutical drugs nowadays. And it's like, well, how can you buy food that's clean? And it's like, is it Whole Foods? Is it local farmers market? Like, and then the pricing on it, it's like, okay, well, what do you give up? And you got to be passionate about it, right? If you care enough about your health, you will take care of yourself.
Right.
During COVID, I would make the comments like, people are afraid to go outside, but they're in their house drinking alcohol. Like,
oh my God. Yeah. Don't get me down that rabbit hole. Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's just like, this makes no sense whatsoever, guys. But
my favorite was at the grocery store with gloves and a mask, and then the shopping carts filled up with Oreos and Doritos and soda. You're like, you probably wouldn't need the gloves and the mask if you actually bought real food. But anyway.
So you're telling me processed foods are not good? Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. One of the other topics I wanted to touch on, it's because I do have a lot of healthcare students and new grads that watch this. And one of the things they come to me all the time about is writing books and whatnot. And I know that you've written a few books. How did you get down that route? What was the process like? Do you hire ghost writers, all that type of stuff? Like, is it a good route to go? Is it more of like a marketing thing for the overall brand? Like, where do you see book publishing at in all this space?
Yeah, Joe, great question. So I think the book is an excellent business card. It's a really good way to sort of establish authority in any given domain. It's a great way to get then invited to do more public speaking and to speak at events. And I think all that, it all helps whatever position or a vertical someone is in, to establish authority and social proof, because you can use those pictures for social media, for on your website, and things like that. So I think, and how I did this is I wrote that myself. I did have an editor that would help kind of chop things up and clean it up, and used a small company out here in Oregon that helped an associate of someone that I know wrote a book about thyroid issues, Tatis Karazian. He's a doctor of chiropractic in San Diego. So he used this publishing company. So I use them as well. And so they helped with the layout. We put it on Amazon Kindle and Nook, and then put on Amazon as well, using CreateSpace. So I think a lot of people hear that, when you write a book, you're going to get this big advance from this publishing house. And that's not at all how the industry works anymore. It's better to self-publish or use CreateSpace or a small publisher or what's called assisted self-publishing. I think that would be the right vernacular. Find someone who can help you with the layout and do everything, get your ISBN number, get it out there. And then if it sells well, and the only way it sells is by you promoting it, right? It's just because it's on Amazon, it doesn't mean you have to send traffic, right? To get it. So you need to, when you have the book, you need to then promote it. And you do that by getting out there and speaking or getting on podcasts. And so that's the best way to go about that. But I think it's a great thing for people to do. I made my book, it's called Belly Fat Effect, a little bit too complicated back then. I was working mostly with doctors and I was used to speaking in more jargonistic terms and things like that. So it's a little bit overcomplicated now. And actually, I mean, it goes back. I mean, I was thinking about calling it the Ozempic effect because it was all about basically how Ozempic works by affecting your gut hormones, which are augmented when you're overweight or obese or have diabetes. So that book was a little ahead of its time. So I might revise that, but that gave me a really good opportunity to get on stages and speak at seminars and events and then get bigger people on my podcast. So I would strongly recommend people do it. One tool that I would use now, I'm working on a new book. It's called rev.com, and that's a way to transcribe. So they have an app. And so if you're driving, let's say you're working your day job and you're trying to figure out how to pivot out of this or straddle, with something different. As you're having a creative or inspirational day, you can just open the Rev app, speak, and it will transcribe that and just start every day. Just, pump out 500 or 1,000 words, and then you can sort of edit that over time. Now we have Chat GPT and all these. I mean, there's a ton of tools now. I mean, I think the cool part about where we are now with technology is the barrier to entry to anything, starting any business of any kind, is so low. The downside is everyone is so distracted. It's hard to get people's attention, right? So it's like, I don't know, but the way that you differentiate yourself is by creating really, really good content and being really good at what you do. So whether that's conveying messages on videos, becoming more confident on camera, becoming the best clinician you possibly can, whatever it may be, you just really need to have the grit and the persistence and realize that this is probably going to take 18 months before you really start making a dent, and there's going to be disappointing days where you feel like you put out good content or a good podcast and it doesn't get the engagement that you expected it to, but you just have to keep going and just be very persistent with this and manifest this, create vision boards, just put yourself out there. But yeah, and the book is a phenomenal way to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like the word you said there too, by the way, manifest.
Yeah.
I was talking about earlier, like visualizations, all that type of stuff. We've even thought about doing stuff on FitBUX where it's more of the mental side of manifesting and visualizations and reminders on all that type of stuff, almost like meditation type of stuff, but for finance.
Mm-hmm.
Because it definitely helps. And those vision boards, like you talked about, all that stuff helps tremendously. Yeah. So definitely good insight on all that. And one of the areas I wanted to touch on is I know we talked a lot about digital creation, right? Because a lot of people, that's the big thing nowadays, right? Digital creation, being an influencer. But you also brought up the Myoxcience stuff, that's the actual like tangible product type of side business area. What have you learned in that? All the way, it could be anything from like manufacturing to distribution to all the in between. Like, how is that world, and what have you learned from that that's so different than the creator content side and the digital side?
Yeah, good question. It is a lot different. Yeah, it's a lot more work, especially in the supplement space. There's a lot of regulations, there's a lot of quality control steps, there's a lot of things. You come up with a product that say is really good at helping to support blood sugar health. And I'm even using language right now to convey this. Let's say you talk about a product that can reduce blood sugar and you can test it and it like drops blood sugar like a rock. We have a product that does that. You can't say that. Unfortunately, you have to say supports healthy metabolism or healthy glucose metabolism. So there's a lot of it's cool to have a product line. You have subscriptions, you have customers, you have people you can directly reach out to. They get reviews, they like it. They're part of a tribe, so to speak, and they're on email lists. And we do webinars, and have a cool community. And I've created T-shirts. We have supplements, we have protein, we have collagen, we have things like that. Like, it's fun. But But also, as I mentioned, the barrier to entry is so low. Now you have a lot of private equity people who are just coming up with these faceless brands, because they see something taking off in a space, and it's so easy just to reach out to a contract manufacturer, create a couple of SKUs, see where it goes. So there's a lot more noise out there. So I think I see a lot of people wanting to get into the supplement space. It's kind of a crazy time. I think it's kind of a crazy time. There's just so many. How do you differentiate yourself? It used to be with branded ingredients. Let's say there was an ingredient, for example, like creatine, that had some peer-reviewed research and some human clinicals on it. So it would have a branded trademark and things. And it used to be that you just purchase that ingredient, which was oftentimes more expensive than the non-branded ingredients. But now everyone's using the branded stuff. So yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, if I didn't have the I was a sales rep for one of the biggest companies here, and then I used them as my manufacturer to get started. So, and I had all the relationships with the raw material suppliers. So, it's a little bit easier for me to kind of get my foot in the door, so to speak, because of those relationships. But if I didn't have that, I don't know that I'd recommend someone go into creating supplements. Now, I think skincare products, I think there's a lot of solutions out there. Small exercise bands, things that you can get manufactured, overseas or even here, or make yourself. I think having physical products is nice because Shopify makes it so easy now to just get up and going and stuff, and you get reviews, or you can put it on Etsy. It is nice, but it's a lot of time too. And so I do notice that it's hard for me to, as that business grows, it's hard to create really good content because I get distracted with employees and shipping issues, customer service issues, supply issues. Vendors are always having challenges since COVID. It's like, this is out of stock, or this is at whatever. We have a bottle cap shortage, whatever. I mean, there's always something. But, part of that is just like how it goes. Life is tough. You have to figure these things out. I mean, when Jeff Bezos was creating Amazon, I'm sure there was a lot of challenges. Same with Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, or whatever, Steve Jobs and Apple. And there's always challenges. I mean, if you read the Elon Musk book about Tesla and, Solar City and SpaceX, I mean, there was a lot of challenges in getting those businesses off the ground. So I think it is good. It just causes you to just think differently and become a different person. And you're going to have, as you increase your revenues and your income, you're going to have to change as a person, right? Your mindset around money, around risk is all going to have to change over time. So I think it's cool to get paid to learn, right? When you're starting your business, like you're learning a lot, and you can use those skills in other areas and other domains of life. So yeah, having the physical products is good. But it definitely can be distracting from the pure content side, right? So I'd probably have more books written and things like that. But I enjoy the physical product side as this kind of the vertical that I was in for so long before. So it was really a natural fit for me to get back into that. And I saw a need for some of the things that we offer in the space.
Yeah, it's a tough game, like former life before. Like I was in investment banking, valuation work, M&A, all that fun stuff. And, I had worked on a few nutrition companies. Those of you that have never done any manufacturing stuff since 2020, the supply chains have been, yeah, it's been a little bit of a nightmare. A few family members in that side of the world and in manufacturing, and it's been tough out there. So,
Yeah.
just in terms of any last words of advice or
Yeah.
anything out there, for aspiring, because like I said, we work with a lot of healthcare professionals. Um, any of them that are trying to get outside of that norm, like a PT, SLP, PA, OT, whatever it is that says, look, I want to try to go down this journey. Any other words of advice you'd like to share with them?
Yeah. Great question. I think being persistent and it comes back to just manifesting this. It's going to be hard, and visualizing what your life could be, and the freedom that you could have in terms of, you know, um, I don't know, it'd be hard. I mean, I really admire health professionals that work in an outpatient type setting. They're in a hospital, in a clinic. I mean, every day, for years. I mean, that's tough work, but it's good work. You're helping people, and just realizing, know yourself. Like, could you be okay working from coffee shops on most days, or working from home? Like, I think a lot of people want that sort of flexibility, if you will, but they would miss the social connections and things. So that's that that side of it, you're going to have to straddle and going to have to hustle for a couple of years to make this happen. So, I see a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs, and yet they're blowing money on cars or travel and all that. So you're going to have to trim back some expenses to fund the business. So that, and just realize that this is going to take time. But if it's something that you're incredibly passionate about and are constantly reading, constantly sharing, constantly talking to people about, people, friends and relatives are coming to you for information on this one thing, whether it's shoulder injuries or knee pain, whatever, and you really think you have some knowledge or skills that could help a lot of people. I think it's selfish to not share that with the rest of the world. Like, why wouldn't you? So that's, I think, just realizing that it has to be something bigger than yourself. It has to be more than just, oh, I want to make $1 million, right? Like, because it's going to be hard to get to that first $1 million, but you have to be just so fired up about it that you're going to want to just work tirelessly to get this out there, because there's a lot of noise out there. So yeah, that's the advice that I would say. But I think it's rewarding, when you get the emails, when you get the gifts in the mail. I've gotten letters from people. It's incredibly rewarding. People just randomly watch a video that you made on the internet and handwrite a letter and put it in the mail and send it to you. That's really, really cool. So we have this tool, the internet, that is so effective. You can reach people anywhere in the world. Sometimes when I do these live videos, I have people in, Pakistan or Albania or wherever. I mean, I've never been to these countries, and people are commenting and saying, I really like what you do, or, you do a seminar and I have someone that came from South Africa to see me in London, for example, whatever. Like, I just wanted to meet you in person and see this talk. Well, talk wasn't even that great, but, and so I think it can be very rewarding in that way. And so, yeah. And I think the universe, God, however you want to look at this, rewards people who are out there, doing good in the world. And so there is something to be said about the fact that, like you said, Joe, when we started, the money will come. You just have to really put in the work, and the more that you're helping people. And if you look at these billionaires, I think a lot of people don't want to talk about billionaires, that we should tax the billionaires, or they shouldn't have. But most of these people that have accumulated a lot of wealth, they've created products that have helped a lot of people. I mean, we trash Bill Gates all the time for buying up the farmland, right? But look at what he created. I mean, with Windows and Microsoft, I mean, most people use Excel all the time, or Word. We trash Zuckerberg, but how often are we on Instagram and Facebook? Probably people spend hours a day on that. Elon Musk, look, there's Cybertrucks and Teslas everywhere. So, these people have created products that really improve the lives of others. So I think if you can create a product, whether it's a digital product, an information product, or whatever, you should go for it. You can help a lot of people. And that drive, knowing that you're helping people, will cause you to cut back and trim back on these expenses and fund the business. And that passion will really help you get it off the ground. And then it will be really rewarding when you actually do get your first customer, right? Wow. You create a book and people are buying it. You start to get reviews. And so that momentum, it's like a flywheel. You're just going to get more and more momentum on the flywheel. The more that you help people, and the more inspiration you'll derive or gain from that. And it's a cool way to, I don't like working for other people, Joe. That's just what it comes down to. So, I don't like having to show up at 9 and get off at 5. There's a day where I want to take my daughter on a hike or go out with my girlfriend and travel or whatever. So it's that flexibility to work really hard when you're working, and then take time off when you want to, I think is really rewarding.
Yeah. The big word you said in there, passion.
Yeah.
Like, if you're doing it for money,
it's not going to work.
Burn out very quickly. I can guarantee you that. You got to have that passion, to a point where it's not even working. It's just your life. You just love doing it so much that it's like, what else would you be doing?
Yeah.
Right. Any big things on the docket coming up that you want everybody to be aware of in terms of what's coming out next? Any type of book or any type of supplement or anything that you want to let everybody know of?
We make really good videos all the time, high intensity health. And so if people want more health specific videos on really what to eat and how food affects your biology, your focus, your productivity, that's a good resource. I'm working on a new book all about metabolic health that I think will be really intriguing for a lot of people, diving into some unexplored areas. So those are the two resources. We upload on YouTube a lot, so there's a lot of good content there at High Intensity Health.
Yep. So that's the YouTube channel. What about the website for those of them or
Oh
no?
yeah, highintensityhealth.com. And then if people want to check out our e-commerce site, we do really good creatine paired with electrolytes. That's really unique, actually. A lot of clinical studies show that electrolytes enhance the absorption of creatine, and then creatine also helps with cellular hydration. So that's really why when people pair them together, they notice a better effect when they go to the gym compared to just taking isolated creatine alone. So we do that differently. We have some sleep formulations, vitamin D, K2, some unique products in that realm. So that's Myoxcience with an X. So Myoxcience. So Myoxcience, just replace the S with an X.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for coming on. I know that
For
you're
sure,
busy.
Joe.
It's definitely appreciated. I like having people on to show that side of their journey because oftentimes, younger people in their 20s and even in their early 30s don't see that side of the world. So hearing it, straight from someone that's gone through it and has been there, it's invaluable to them.
Absolutely.
So thank you for coming on. And, we might have to do this again because some of the things you said, I can go on for like a Joe Rogan podcast that's 3 or 4 hours long. So,
Right, right.
but
Sounds
perfect.
good.
So,
I'd be happy
yeah,
to.
perfect. Well, thanks for coming on and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, Joe. Appreciate you.